In a world where wealth can crush lives and cruelty hides behind charm, one girl's story proves that truth and courage cannot be silenced. This is the story of Ada, who lost everything, yet gave birth to the truth. In a small village where dust rose with every footstep, Mama Grace woke before the sun. Her hands were rough, her back slightly bent, but her spirit stood tall. She was a widow, long forgotten by comfort, yet never forgotten by dignity. Each morning, she swept the front of their mud house carefully, as if the ground itself deserved respect. Beside her lived Ada, her only daughter, her reason, her quiet miracle. Ada's clothes were simple and worn, but they were always clean. Her eyes held both innocence and strength, shaped by a life that had taught her too much, too early. The village knew them well. Some whispered with pity, others with judgment. Poverty made people uncomfortable, it reminded them of fear. Yet Mama Grace never begged, never bowed her head in shame. She sold vegetables by the roadside, counting coins slowly, honestly. What she lacked in money, she made up for in values. "Stand straight, Ada," Mama Grace would say softly. "The world looks down on the poor. Don't help it." Ada listened. She always did. Their home was small, cracked walls, a leaking roof, one wooden bed they shared. At night, when the wind slipped through the holes, Mama Grace wrapped Ada in her arms like a shield against the world. Hunger visited often, but love never missed a day. Sometimes Ada watched other girls walk past with fine shoes and loud laughter. She wondered what it felt like to live without counting every grain of rice. But Mama Grace's voice would bring her back. "We may have little," she said, "but we will never steal, never lie, and never sell our souls." Was dignity still possible when everything else was missing? The village elders often looked at Mama Grace with quiet surprise. She had suffered loss, her husband taken by sickness years ago, but grief had not hardened her heart. Instead, it made her gentle, careful, and deeply protective of her daughter. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, Ada rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mother," she asked softly, "will life always be this hard?" Mama Grace smiled, not because the answer was easy, but because hope mattered. "Life tests us," she said. "But it never defines our worth. I will protect her, even if the world turns cruel," Mama Grace thought, holding her daughter a little tighter. In that poor village, surrounded by judgment and struggle, a foundation was quietly being built, not of wealth, but of truth. A mother teaching her child that honor survives even in hunger, and love survives even in loss. One night of music and lights opened the door to a lifetime of pain. The village transformed as if touched by magic. Colorful fabrics hung between trees, oil lamps flickered like tiny stars, and drums echoed through the dusty paths. It was the harvest festival, the one night each year when laughter was louder than hunger, and hope danced freely, even among the poor. Ada stood beside Mama Grace, her simple dress freshly washed, her hair neatly braided. She did not wear gold or silk, but there was a quiet beauty in her innocence. As she smiled shyly at the music, her eyes reflected wonder, like someone tasting joy without knowing its cost. Outsiders arrived in shiny cars, drawing attention and whispers. The village watched in awe and curiosity. Wealth had a sound, a smell, a confidence that announced itself without words. That was when Daniel arrived. He stepped out dressed in elegance, his shoes untouched by dust, his smile polished by privilege. The son of a billionaire, though the village did not yet know his name. His eyes scanned the crowd with boredom, until they stopped on Ada. She laughed softly at a dancer's mistake, and in that moment, something shifted. Daniel approached with practiced ease, his voice smooth, his words warm. He praised the festival, the village, then her. Ada felt her heart race, not from love, but from unfamiliar attention. No man had ever spoken to her like that before. Mama Grace noticed immediately. A mother's eyes see danger long before it speaks. Be careful, she whispered to Ada. Sweet words are easy. Honest intentions are rare. But Daniel smiled again, promising nothing directly, yet suggesting everything. He spoke of dreams, of travel, of life beyond the village. Ada listened, caught between caution and curiosity. Was this kindness, or something else disguised as it? Why would someone like him notice someone like me? Ada wondered, her heart both hopeful and afraid. The music grew louder. The lights brighter. And slowly, Daniel pulled Ada away from her mother's side, just enough to make her feel chosen, special, seen. Mama Grace watched from a distance, her chest tightening. She had survived life by trusting her instincts, and tonight, they screamed in warning. Daniel spoke of love as if it were a gift, but his eyes held impatience. To him, this was a game. To Ada, it felt like destiny knocking softly. As the night deepened, laughter masked danger, and promises floated like petals in the air, beautiful, fragile, and ready to fall. Have you, or someone you know, ever trusted the wrong person and paid the price for it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because Ada's journey is far from over. He promised her a future, then disappeared from it. The night grew quieter as the festival lights faded, but Daniel's words grew louder in Ada's heart. Away from the noise, under the cover of darkness, he spoke softly, carefully, like someone who knew exactly which strings to pull. He told her she was different. That he had never met a woman so pure, so real. He spoke of marriage as if it were already written, of taking her away from the village, of a life where she would never count coins again. Each promise fell gently, like rain on dry soil. Ada listened, torn between fear and belief. No one had ever spoken to her with such certainty. His voice made the impossible sound reasonable. He held her hands and swore he would return. He said love was patient, that their time together had to be hidden, for now. He blamed the world, society, his family. Never himself. Was this love, or just beautiful words dressed as truth? If he truly means this, my life will finally change, Ada thought, her heart trembling between hope and doubt. The night stretched on. Ada trusted him not because she was weak, but because she had been raised to believe that words mattered. That promises were sacred. That a man who spoke of marriage spoke from the heart. But Daniel saw something else. To him, Ada was a moment. A secret. A mistake he would soon forget. As dawn approached, he grew distant. His touch lost warmth, his eyes avoided hers. When the first light broke the sky, he stood and adjusted his jacket, already stepping back into his world of privilege. I'll send for you, he said casually, as if discussing weather. Trust me. Then he was gone. Ada stood alone in the pale morning light, her dress wrinkled, her mind racing. The silence felt louder than the drums had been. The village began to wake, unaware that her life had already changed. Confusion settled in first, then fear. She waited. Hours passed. Then days. No message. No return. No word. Each sunrise chipped away at the dream he had painted. Shame crept in, followed by a heavy, aching realization. The future he promised had vanished with the night. Ada's heart broke quietly, without witnesses. If you've ever believed someone because you wanted hope more than doubt, you understand her pain. When she carried his child, he treated her like a crime. Ada's hands trembled as she pressed them against her stomach, feeling the new life growing within her. A mix of wonder and fear swirled inside her. She had believed in Daniel's promises, in the life he had painted with his words, but now, reality pressed down with the weight of uncertainty. Determined, she left the village behind, stepping onto the dusty road that led to the city. Each step echoed her courage, though fear lurked at the edges of her heart. She would confront him. She had to. Her child deserved a father, she deserved acknowledgement. The city was vast, noisy, and cold. Buildings loomed like silent judges, and the wealthy passed by in sleek cars, unconcerned with the lives they crushed. Ada felt small, but she refused to turn back. I will not let fear decide my fate, she thought, gripping her shawl tightly. At Daniel's mansion, she was ushered into a room gleaming with luxury. The walls whispered of power and privilege, far removed from the humble home she had known. Daniel appeared, perfectly composed, his smile a mask that did not reach his eyes. I'm carrying your child, Ada said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet steady with resolve. He froze for a moment, as if hearing a word he had never imagined. Then the mask returned, colder than the marble around them. That's impossible, he said sharply. You must be mistaken. This is inconvenient. Ada's heart sank, but she held her ground. She saw now the man behind the charm, the man who had spoken of love and marriage with ease, but who valued only his status, his reputation, his wealth. You promised me, she began, but he cut her off. I promise nothing, he sneered. And you will not make a scene. Leave, or I will make sure your presence here is remembered as a mistake. The words hit her like blows. Shame, humiliation, and fear intertwined. She had come seeking justice, or at least acknowledgement, but found cruelty instead. She was invisible in his world, a problem to be erased. Why did he treat life, her child's life, as something to fear? Ada left the mansion trembling, each step heavier than the last. The streets were no friendlier than his walls. People passed by, unaware of the storm in her heart. The life inside her was a secret, precious and terrifying, and for the first time, she felt the true weight of solitude. The city had shown her its face, wealth could shield cruelty, charm could hide betrayal, and power could silence truth. And yet, in the quiet of her own heart, Ada felt a small spark of defiance. She would not vanish. She would not surrender. Some stories begin in the heart of darkness, and yet, even there, life insists on being heard. A mother knelt for mercy, but power answered with cruelty. Mama Grace had walked the dusty road for hours, her heart heavy yet determined. She carried no wealth, no gifts, only the truth of her daughter's suffering. In her arms, she imagined Ada, alone, frightened, carrying a child in a world that had shown no kindness. Every step toward the city was a step fueled by love, desperation, and courage. The city loomed ahead, tall and unforgiving. Buildings rose like silent sentinels, and the streets hummed with life that had little concern for the poor. Mama Grace's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the mission she had undertaken, to plead, to reason, to demand justice from the men who had shattered her daughter's life. She entered the mansion, her heart pounding like a drum. Daniel and his father were seated in a room polished to perfection, their eyes initially calm, then narrowing as they recognized her presence. Please, she began, voice steady though cracked with emotion. My daughter, she is carrying your son. I beg you, do what is right. Show mercy, acknowledge her, protect her. Silence stretched for a moment that tasted like hope. But the hope was cruelly short-lived. Daniel's father rose slowly, his face a mask of impatience. This is not your place, he said sharply. Your pleas mean nothing here. Leave before you embarrass yourself further. Mama Grace knelt, her hands clasped, her eyes fixed on the men she had hoped might show humanity. Do you not see the life you have hurt? The child, innocent, deserves truth. Daniel chuckled, a sound stripped of warmth. Truth. Do you think the world cares about poor people's problems? You overstep your place, woman. Humiliation burned through her like fire. Guards appeared suddenly, strong arms pulling her to her feet. She struggled, but their strength was merciless. Each step she was dragged back toward the doors echoed like a hammer striking her spirit. How can they be so blind to their cruelty? She thought, her mind screaming against the injustice. Her pleas fell on ears that had no compassion, no conscience. Each word, each desperate cry, was ignored, or worse, mocked. The grandeur of their wealth had built walls not just of stone, but of moral blindness. The moment she was thrown from the mansion into the cold streets, Mama Grace felt the full weight of power's indifference. Yet, even as she stumbled, her knees scraped and heart aching, she rose again. She would not break. She could not break. Her daughter's truth was her own, and she would carry it forward, even if the world would not listen. Some fights leave no immediate victory, and some pleas go unanswered. But courage is measured not in success, but in the willingness to face the storm for those we love. That night, poverty met power, and lost everything. The village slept under a blanket of darkness, unaware of the storm about to descend. Only the wind whispered through the crooked houses and dusty paths, carrying secrets no one was ready to hear. In the small home of Mama Grace and Ada, a single lantern flickered, casting warm shadows on the cracked walls. The mother and daughter rested, their hearts heavy from the day's struggles but unaware that a greater danger waited in silence. Suddenly, the calm shattered. Boots pounded against the earth, and the sharp commands of strangers cut through the night like knives. Guards, sent by the men who valued wealth over life, stormed into the village with a purpose crueler than hunger. They tore through doors, smashed windows, and set fire to wooden beams. The home that had held decades of laughter, tears, and quiet love crumbled beneath their might. Each crash of timber against the ground sounded like a heartbeat stopped in mid-throb. Ada clutched Mama Grace's hand, their fingers entwined like roots clinging to soil, as if together they could hold back the destruction. Smoke filled the room, stinging their eyes, but they refused to let go of one another. How can someone destroy a life so easily, just because they can? Ada thought, terror gripping her chest. Outside, the village dogs barked in confusion, and a cold wind carried the acrid smell of burnt wood. The villagers awoke too late, powerless against the invaders. Whispers of fear replaced the usual morning chatter, and no one dared intervene. Mama Grace tried to shield Ada as splinters and debris fell around them. Her voice rose above the chaos, calling for mercy, for reason, but the men with power did not hear her, or they chose not to. In that merciless night, there was no justice, only force. The small home that had been their sanctuary was gone. Their few belongings, clothes, tools, the precious books Ada loved, were reduced to ash. They were left exposed. Standing in the cold night, the stars above indifferent witnesses to their suffering. Yet in the darkness, something flickered in their hearts, a stubborn refusal to vanish entirely. Even as the world tried to erase them, the bond between mother and daughter remained unbroken. Together, they were small, but together, they still existed. The village slept no more that night. The cries of those robbed of their home would linger long after the fires had died, a silent testimony to the cruelty that wealth could wield without conscience. She survived years of poverty, only to die from wickedness. The night was merciless. The wind howled through the empty fields where the village had once been alive with voices, carrying with it the biting chill of fear and despair. Ada wrapped her mother in the thin shawl they had salvaged from the wreckage of their home, but it offered little warmth against the cruel cold. Mama Grace's body had begun to fail her. Hunger gnawed deep into her bones, and the nights of exposure left her skin pale and fragile. She tried to stand, tried to move, tried to fight the slow, invisible hand of death, but her strength was gone, stolen by the men who valued wealth over life. Ada knelt beside her, pressing her mother's hand to her lips, murmuring words of comfort she barely believed herself. "Mother, please, you must live. We can survive this. We have each other." But Mama Grace's eyes, once full of unshakable fire, were dimming. She smiled weakly at Ada, her lips trembling. "Ada, my child, your heart must stay strong, even if mine fades." Ada's tears fell freely, mixing with the cold mud beneath them. She tried to feed her mother the little they had, a piece of bread, a sip of water, but hunger and exhaustion were stronger than hope. Why does life punish those who give so much, who ask for so little? Ada thought, her mind reeling with helplessness. She wrapped her arms around Mama Grace, trying to share warmth through touch, through love, through the desperation that had no other weapon. The mother who had once protected her from every hardship now needed protection herself, and Ada felt the bitter cruelty of the world pressing in, inescapable. Hours passed like a lifetime. Mama Grace whispered blessings, prayers, and farewells, her voice a fragile thread weaving through the night. Ada clung to her, promising silently to keep the legacy of love, honor, and dignity that her mother had instilled in her. As dawn broke, casting pale light over the ruined village, Mama Grace's hand slipped from Ada's. Her breath stilled. Her life, resilient for so many years, had been claimed not by disease, but by the merciless consequences of greed and cruelty. Ada sat beside her mother, shivering, broken, but refusing to surrender. Though grief weighed heavy, a seed of defiance had taken root. Her mother's strength, even in death, whispered one final lesson: love endures, even when the body cannot. The village was silent, mourning the loss of the woman who had carried dignity through despair. Ada, though small and vulnerable, now bore the weight of their story, and the truth that wealth could destroy homes, but could never destroy courage. When the world abandoned her, life still found a way. Rain fell in sheets, pounding the earth with the rhythm of sorrow and fury. Ada huddled beneath a tattered piece of cloth, shivering, soaked to the bone, and alone. The wind tore at her hair and the remnants of her home, reminding her that nothing had been spared, not shelter, not safety, not mercy. Her body ached in ways that were both new and familiar. Years of struggle had built resilience, but this pain was different. She was carrying life now, the child of the man who had promised love and left nothing but heartbreak. Each contraction was sharp, relentless, but Ada gritted her teeth and breathed through the storm. Can I really do this alone? She wondered, fear and determination mingling in her heart. The village was silent, emptied by destruction. The stars hid behind dark clouds, offering no guidance. Yet Ada focused on the small miracle growing inside her. She whispered to it, her voice barely audible over the thunder, "Hold on, please, hold on. Mama Grace would have wanted you to survive." Lightning split the sky, illuminating the ruined fields and broken huts. In that harsh light, Ada felt a strange calm. The world had tried to strip her of everything, her home, her mother, her dignity, but it had not taken this life. This small being, warm and fragile, was hers to protect. Hours passed in agony and determination. Mud clung to her, rain soaked through every layer of clothing, and her body screamed with exhaustion. Still, she pressed forward, guided by instinct, by love, and by the faint memory of her mother's courage. At last, with one final cry that cut through the storm, the baby emerged, tiny, wet, and alive. Ada held the infant close, feeling the warmth against her chest, the heartbeat matching her own. In that moment, the world's cruelty could not reach them. Life had found a way where hope seemed impossible. She wrapped the baby in the only cloth she had, rocking gently, whispering promises of protection and love. Tears mingled with rain on her face as she realized that, despite every loss, she had gained something no one could take away, a new beginning, fragile but unbroken. I will keep you safe, no matter what, Ada vowed, pressing her lips to the newborn's forehead. The storm raged on, but in their small shelter beneath the open sky, warmth and hope flickered. The baby's tiny hands clutched her finger, a reminder that even in the darkest night, life insists on continuing. This child was more than a survival, it was a symbol, a promise, a truth that could not be silenced by wealth, cruelty, or betrayal. They thought the story ended, but the truth had just been born. Ada sat under the fading storm clouds, her newborn cradled carefully against her chest. The rain had slowed, leaving the earth damp and glistening, as if the world itself had paused to witness this fragile moment of survival. Exhausted, cold, and battered by life's cruelty, she looked down at the tiny face before her and felt a surge of purpose unlike anything she had known. I will raise you, she whispered, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. No matter what they take, no matter who tries to stop us, you and I will survive. The child stirred in her arms, a small life force that demanded love and protection. Ada felt the weight of her promise and the echo of her mother's teachings, dignity, courage, and truth. She had lost her home, her mother, and the comfort of safety, but she had not lost the ability to fight, to teach, to nurture. If Daniel knew, would he even care? She wondered, bitterness and determination twisting together. Far away, in a world of gleaming walls, fine clothes, and celebrations untouched by suffering, Daniel laughed with friends and family. Wine sparkled in his glass. His life, untroubled by the consequences of his actions, glittered like the chandeliers above him. He thought the chapter was closed. He believed the truth buried along with the home, the mother, and the honor of the girl he had abandoned. But the truth, stubborn and unyielding, had taken a new form. It breathed, it cried, it clutched at Ada's finger and demanded a future. The child he denied, the life he tried to erase, was alive, and with Ada, it was growing stronger. Ada rose slowly, her body still aching, her eyes burning with resolve. Each step across the damp fields was a step into an uncertain world, but it was her world now, and she would shape it. Every hardship had carved strength into her heart, every loss had forged resilience, and every act of cruelty she had endured had lit a quiet fire that would never be extinguished. She looked toward the horizon, where the sun struggled to break through gray clouds. Light touched her and the child like a promise. We will not vanish, she said softly. We will live, and we will carry truth with us, truth that cannot be silenced, truth that cannot be bought, truth that will always rise. And so, in that ruined village, amid mud and rain and heartbreak, a new chapter began. One of survival, courage, and a defiance that even wealth and power could not conquer. The story Daniel thought ended had only just begun, and the smallest heartbeat in Ada's arms was its first, unyielding proof. No matter how hard the world tries to bury truth, life and courage ensure it cannot be destroyed. Have you, or someone you know, ever trusted the wrong person and paid the price for it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because Ada's journey is far from over.